Creative Life Survival Guide, where I share survival tips on creativity, productivity, and balancing a creative life. I'm your host, Laura. Hey creatives, if you're like me and you want to start a podcast, but don't necessarily have all the time in the world to dedicate to adding music or editing, Anchor does all of this for you. It's a super easy app to use, and it distributes your podcast as well. So you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and whatever other podcast app you might be listening to now, and you don't have to do any of the work. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey everybody, today I want to talk about being a creator and confidence. And I think every creator at some point has been surrounded by doubts. No matter how experienced you are, we all kind of lack that confidence sometimes. It's scary to put your heart and soul into some sort of creative project and not know what the reaction is going to be. Sometimes we just do it for ourselves, and sometimes we're willing to put our work out into the world. So how can we really get past that initial fear and actually be willing to share our work with the world and put it out and express ourselves? So, I have 5 tips that helped me kind of build the confidence to not only start writing, but keep writing and, start this podcast, start a few other projects and things like that. So I have a lot of creative projects, but without some sort of, confidence or willingness to put myself out there, none of these things would exist. So the first tip that I have is to practice out loud. And I kind of get that the first tip is basically telling you, if you're afraid to publish, just publish, but that's the truth. The more that you practice, the better that you get. And the more you practice putting your work out into the public, the better you get at handling that feedback, whether it's good or bad. And so when you practice out loud, which is something that I've talked about often, is you're building your confidence by not only creating often, but you're also testing the waters for your work. You're seeing what works for you, what works for other people, and you're still just creating for yourself. So most people in the creative community are extremely supportive, whether you're an artist, whether you're a writer, whether you're pursuing a different creative hobby. It's not really about competition. It's about supporting other artists. So if you get solid feedback, you can use that to, take it back to your work and just get better. And that's the great thing about the creative community, is that you don't have to listen to everything. You don't have to listen to anything at all, but getting that feedback and practicing out loud really helps. And if somebody makes a suggestion that doesn't really feel like the right change to you, you don't have to change it. So if you're hesitant at first, maybe consider publishing your creations with a pen name, or, use a blog to start practicing writing. That's how I started. And I didn't put my name out there because I wasn't sure if it was going to be good or not. Create an Instagram account and share your art or share your photography, and, use a different handle and use a different name that isn't associated with you, but practice putting it out in the world. And, as you develop, I hope that you move to a place where you can feel comfortable enough to put your own name on that. So my first writing practice was under Minimalist Endeavors, because I was, practicing writing for my minimalist journey. So I was documenting that. And once I gained some momentum, I transferred that over to the Winter Writer, because my niche changed. And, all of these things are awesome tags, but I found a better space and a new place to deliver value. So now I'm able to publish my books under my own name, and I'm able to do these sorts of podcasts and other sorts of writings with my own name. So my second tip is to study others. So good artists copy, great artists steal. Now, when you first start your creative project or you're lacking confidence, look to others, emulate the work that you love, but go beyond just their work. Instead of just copying, steal their ideas and turn them into your own. Read or look at other people's works. The more you take in, the more you can feel that influence. So the more that you draw in, the better you're able to apply all of those things to your creative work. And then, of course, practice these things out loud. Build confidence in your ability to mold and mesh all of these things together and make something unique, make something new. And, some of the most experienced creators are still humble enough to say that, their favorite advice, the advice they still follow, all of these things is some of the most basic. And when you understand your craft and you're able to, kind of take these basic pieces and then make them your own, that's how you build a strong foundation. And that's how you go back to your creations, and the more confidence you're going to blossom out of that. My third tip is to create other things. So think back to the very first time you discovered your creative project, whatever your favorite thing is. And remember how exciting it was to just, start and do it just for fun? There was no pressure. You just did it because you loved it. And, now that we're trying to, create things and put them out in the world, and you're looking for this validation, when was the last time that you felt like your creation was just fun? If you feel it in your current endeavor, you're probably feeling confidence. You're feeling good in your work, but sometimes we need to reconnect with our inner imperfections and the newness of a creative hobby. So start practicing by doing other things, create other things. So take a step away from, whatever it is that you're trying to put out in the public and move to a different medium. So as a writer, I publish writing pieces, articles, books. And, sometimes I look to a creative project that I just do for fun. So, sometimes that means I play some games on the computer. Sometimes that means that I, pull out a canvas and just paint. And let me tell you, I'm a terrible painter, but it's so much fun. So I just get to practice something new. I don't worry about, it being perfect. I know it won't be because I'm terrible, but I just have fun with it. So it's, kind of a different sort of challenge for me. And you're able to do something that's different, and you can just kind of have fun and not worry about everything being perfect. So when you explore these other projects, you're also exploring new strategies of thinking, feeling, doing. You practice something new and unlock that joy, that new experience that you felt when you first started your creative project. So you don't have to be good, and you never have to be good. You never have to put this out in the world. Your extra creative project can be something that's just for you. And it just kind of gives you a break and gives your mind some sort of relaxation away from your current project. My fourth tip is that when you're creating, just create. Nothing gives me more confidence than knowing that I sat down and I wrote an article or a chapter without any distractions. I never have to worry if the piece is connected because I just work on it and it alone. So, I don't take breaks between a chapter or things like that. I am focused completely when I'm working on that piece of work. So whether it's a chapter or an article, and I know that when I get distracted in the middle of writing those things, I will have to go back and do a lot more editing. I will have to work on that and fix things later because I have not been completely present in it. So when you know that you've put your heart and soul into your work and you've been there, you've had the focus, you can have more confidence in it. And you might still be worried about putting it in the real world, but think about the difference between being present and being in a state of flow with your creative project versus when you were getting distracted or you maybe didn't necessarily give it all that you had. So if you started and stopped several times with distractions, it's probably not the best thing that you can do. You're not going to feel as confident. So when you're able to be fully present into what you're doing, your confidence is going to grow. And, your work is never going to be perfect, but you can find confidence in knowing that you made it and you were focused when you did it. And my final tip is to find support and feedback. Sometimes we get input that's the exact opposite of what we want to hear, but it's important to understand the difference between constructive critiques and opinion. So one person's comment like, "Oh, I don't like this," is an opinion. You can't control whether one person is going to like your work. If they don't, then the work wasn't made for them. It wasn't meant to be their work. So, the difference between that's an opinion. And constructive critique, on the other hand, is good feedback. So it gives you something to improve upon. It says, I noticed that this scene has a perspective change. That's good feedback. And I get that feedback a lot. We all want our work to be flawless, but the reality is that there's always something that could have been better. You can always polish something to the point where it's over polished. And, I still find little issues with my first published novel and even my second. And, that can be kind of frustrating to see that that's in print. But, I created a book out of nothing. So I'm willing to accept that, I am human. I make mistakes and I'm not going to be able to catch all of them. Editors aren't going to be able to catch everything. There will always be something that could have been better. But you know what? You put it out in the world and, you made something out of nothing. And, I think a couple years ago, the realization that I had made a spelling mistake or a grammar mistake would have just left me so crippled. But I have found a wonderful support system, both online and in person. So, I have a writing group that will give me really constructive feedback. I have my dad who will, look over my work and find little things. My husband will go in and he'll, point out where I struggle with commas. And I'll willingly admit that the commas are the worst part of my writing. I hate them. But you know what? I have people who are willing to help me. They're willing to give me constructive critiques rather than just, opinions like this is great, this is terrible. I have people who are willing to support me and give me good feedback. And practicing out loud, if I had never given them that work, I never would have known. I never would have started to see the things or see my crutch words or, other things like that in my creative work. So being able to, use my resources and the people around me to, find that feedback, find that support system, is just really wonderful. So I strongly I just hope that you continue practicing your work. Find a good feedback loop, find a group of like-minded creators, whether that's online. I know right now we're still in the middle of some social distancing. Maybe you find a group online that will build you up rather than tear you down. Never talk down on somebody. And so study your work, study the work of others, and build your confidence in your skill and grow as an artist. Understand that who you are today is just a bit better than you were yesterday. And we're constantly growing. Our skills, our creative craft, our confidence, they're all going to adapt and change with us. So be human and show us your beautiful, imperfect work because you deserve to have that out in the world. All right, creatives, I will see you next week on the Creative Life Survival Guide. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Creative Life Survival Guide. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you choose to listen. To find more information or survival tips for your creative life, head to laura-winter.com.